Now, I have visited the majority of the capital cities in the Balkan region of Europe. And so what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to rank all of the Balkan capital cities that I have visited from the worst to the best. Now, just as a quick disclaimer, I don't want to get into any political debates or arguments, but if we include Kosovo, there are 11 countries in the Balkan region. And if you don't want to include Kosovo, there are 10. Now, I have been to all of the Balkan capital cities, apart from Skopje in North Macedonia. And if we count Kosovo, I've not been to Pristina as well. So I've been to all of the others apart from Skopje and Pristina. So I'm going to rank all of the other Balkan capital cities. Once I've been to both Skopje and Pristina, I'll be able to add those into the list. But for now, we're just going to rank the 9 others, 9 the worst, 1 the best. Now, just a quick little message before I do get into the rankings. If you are interested in camping, and if you like camping, or maybe you're planning a camping trip sometime soon, if you go to the description of this video, click on the top link, it will take you to the Camping World website. You can get your camping equipment here, your tents, your camper vans, every piece of equipment that you need for your camping trip. So do check them out. Again, I'll drop a link in the comment section as well, so you can click on the link there too. Check them out and see if you would be interested in purchasing any items for your upcoming camping trip. And now finally, before I do share with you my rankings, do drop in the comment section below what your favourite capital cities are in the Balkans, and which capital cities in the Balkans are your least favourite capital cities in the Balkans. So let me know your favourite Balkan capitals and let me know your least favourite Balkan capitals. Right, so let's get into the rankings now, and let's start with number 9, my least favourite Balkan capital city, and that has to be the capital city of Montenegro, Podgorica. Now, you may be looking at this clip here thinking, wow, Podgorica looks absolutely wonderful, but I'm sorry to break it to you, this is not actually Podgorica in this clip here. This is Kotor, another city in Montenegro. Now, I don't actually have any footage whatsoever from Podgorica. And to be honest with you, it's probably a good idea that I don't have any photos, because Podgorica is so bad to the point where you wouldn't want to take any pictures anyway. There's nothing to do there, there's nothing to see. It's just lots of roads with lots of random ugly buildings. That's all it is. If you are going to come to Montenegro, I'd highly recommend you come to Kotor instead. It's a lovely city, fantastic architecture. The bay is one of the most incredible bays in Europe. Or an alternative destination that I went to is a town called Budva on the coast. Again, it's got a really nice old town. It's by the sea. I did personally prefer Kotor over Budva, but Budva is a nice place too, certainly better than Podgorica. Now, if you are doing a Balkans backpacking trip or a travelling trip, you will probably pass through Podgorica, because Podgorica is the main bus terminal in Montenegro. And if you are travelling by bus from Bosnia and Herzegovina or Albania or Croatia, you probably will stop by Podgorica on the way to, for example, Kotor or Budva. Just don't take an overnight stay in Podgorica, because you don't need to. It's a waste of time and it's a waste of money. Now, in 8th place in my list of Balkan capital cities is the capital of Croatia, Zagreb. Now, Zagreb is certainly an improvement from Podgorica. It is a much nicer city. There are things to do. There's a nice historic centre. You do have some nice Austrian style architecture in the city, and you also have a good public transport infrastructure, because you do have trams in Zagreb. But I would say that Zagreb is just a little bit boring. It's a little bit plain. It isn't very vibrant. There are some nice green spaces. You do have some art galleries if you're into art galleries. There are some other museums. But to be honest with you, I do think you can get the highlights of the city done within one day. And it's not somewhere I particularly want to go back to, because I feel like I've done it now. And I just think that there are more exciting places to go. And even in Croatia, I would recommend Split over Zagreb personally. And just as a side note, if any of you have been to Lincoln in the UK, Zagreb kind of reminds me a bit of Lincoln for some reason. So now in 7th place out of these Balkan capital cities is Ljubljana, Slovenia. Now, the reason why I will rank Ljubljana over Zagreb is because I think Ljubljana is a more impressive city than Zagreb. I do think the old town in Ljubljana does have nicer architecture. I certainly recommend that you go up to the castle. You get some lovely views all across the city. And also through Ljubljana Old Town, you do have the river that runs through it, and you've got lots of cafes and restaurants by the river. So in the summer, I can imagine that it's really nice to sit by the river, have something to eat and have a drink. but unfortunately I went in March and it was cold and rainy. So I would recommend that if you are going to come, make sure you do come in the summer from June to September, because you're not guaranteed good weather in the winter months. And Ljubljana really is somewhere where if you're going to be there during a cold rainy day, it's going to be a lot more miserable than on a nice sunny day. And again, like Zagreb, I do think you can probably get the highlights of the city done within 24 hours. And for me, to be honest with you, it's just not exciting enough. It's not dynamic enough for my personal taste. I also did think it was quite expensive as well. Food prices were not cheap. Maybe the cold weather tinted my perception, but I do think 7th place is fair for this city. And now that leads us on to number 6 in this list of Balkan capital cities. And the 6th best Balkan capital city, in my opinion, is Bucharest, Romania. Now, Bucharest is a bit of a funny one because you do have this really nice historic old town in the city centre with cobble streets, lots of grand architecture. It is called the Paris of the East for a reason, because the architecture here is very similar to Paris. But then once you're outside the old town, it really is a proper communist brutalist style vibe with all the brutalist buildings. You've got lots of big spread out roads, lots of shabby looking buildings, but you certainly do want to check out the Bucharest Parliament building. It is one of the largest parliament buildings in the entire world. It really is huge. You've got some museums and also some art galleries that you can check out as well. You do have lots of palaces and lots of green spaces as well. So there are definitely some cool and quirky things that you can do when you are in Bucharest. But for me, there is just a little bit of an eerie vibe to the city. It does feel a little bit creepy. Whilst the old town is very grand and very nice, it can get a little bit quiet during the day. And again, outside of the old town, it does feel a little bit run down and shabby. But I would certainly recommend that you do try some Romanian food. You definitely want to make sure that you do try the Romanian donuts, as you can see in the clip here. They are really, really good. And also do make sure that you try somali, which is mincemeat stuffed in kind of a cabbage roll. Really tasty, really good. And also, if you do like nightlife, there are lots of bars and clubs that you can go to in the old town. But to be honest, some of the music at some of the bars there was unnecessarily too loud. So you may want to check out some other places outside of the old town if you are looking for maybe better nightlife. And so now we get to the 5th best Balkan capital city that I've been to, and that is Tirana, Albania. Now, the reason why I'm going to rank Tirana over Bucharest is because I feel like there is a charm in Tirana that there just isn't in Bucharest. Now, like Bucharest, there is a communist history and there is definitely a kind of shabby feel with some of the buildings in the city. But I just feel that Tirana has a hustle and bustle and a liveliness that Bucharest just doesn't have. However, I wouldn't say that there is too much to do in Tirana from a tourist perspective. You do have some galleries, some history museums, and you also do have some impressive mosques as well in the city too. And the good thing about Tirana is that not only is it one of the cheapest capital cities in the Balkans, but it's also one of the cheapest capital cities in the whole continent of Europe too. Prices of food, drinks and accommodation are considerably cheaper than many Western European destinations. You definitely do want to try some Albanian food when you are there. I recommend that you try a dish called fugazi, which is kind of like a cottage cheese and tomato stew. You can get it with either red peppers or with chicken or beef liver too. It is quite filling, so do be aware of that. Also, when you are in Tirana, I recommend that you go to these chain of coffee stores called Maleri. They do milkshakes, smoothies, cookies, cakes, coffees, etc, etc. I also found that there were lots of vibrant bars you can go to in the nighttime in Tirana. This clip here was recorded in August 2023 on a Tuesday night, and you can see here that even on a Tuesday night the bars were really packed. So I do certainly think that Tirana is one of the most vibrant cities in the Balkan region. However, I would say that because it's quite an ugly city, and because also there isn't really too much to do from a tourist perspective, I do think 5th place out of 9th place is fair for Tirana. So Tirana is going to be in 5th place. And so now we get on to the 4th best Balkan capital city that I have been to, in my opinion. And that 4th best Balkan capital city is Sofia, Bulgaria. Now, if you do like peaceful cities with lots of green spaces, then Sofia is certainly a city that you need to check out, because for me, it is one of the most peaceful and green capital cities that I have ever visited. Now, I visited Sofia in October 2023. It was really warm, about 20 to 25 degrees. So I do recommend that you do not visit during the winter months, because it is nice to walk around these green parks on a nice nice warm day. And of course, you definitely want to check out the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral. It is absolutely spectacular with these golden domes on top of it. And definitely do go inside as well, because it is really fantastic inside. And also, the great thing about Sofia, if you are a carnivore and if you do love your meat, is that Sofia in Bulgaria has fantastic meat. In the summer, you can go to this barbecue place here in Sofia in the NDK Park, which does a big barbecue. Really good meat here. And also, another good thing about Sofia from a tourist perspective is that the transport infrastructure here is really fantastic. You've got trains, buses, a metro system, a tram system as well. And the metro system does even connect the airport with the city centre. But if you are staying in the city centre, it's extremely walkable, so you don't really need to use much public transport anyway, because it is so walkable. But there are certainly a couple of disadvantages with Sofia. Firstly, it's not a very vibrant place. It is one of the least vibrant capital cities that I have ever been to. There isn't much nightlife. I didn't find a lot of nightlife. I think it's one of those places where you kind of have to research where to go, because if you do take a stroll through the city centre on a Saturday night, you're going to be really disappointed because it is so empty. It was almost dead. And also, I didn't think Sofia was particularly cheap. It's certainly not one of the most expensive places in Europe, but it's certainly not one of the cheapest places in Europe. I found the prices in Sofia to be quite similar to Bucharest, a little bit cheaper than Poland maybe, but more expensive than other places in the Balkans like Bosnia, Albania, etc. So the prices aren't actually bad, but considering that Sofia isn't the biggest tourist destination in the world, there aren't really any heavyweight tourist destinations here apart from the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral. And considering it isn't the most dynamic and exciting and vibrant city you're going to visit, I do think that the bang for your buck that you get here, or the value that you get from coming here, isn't as good as some other places in Europe. So that's why I'm going to rank it as 4th. So it is a good city, but it just isn't one of my all-time favourites. And so now we're up to number 3 in this list of Balkan capital cities, and the 3rd best Balkan capital city that I have visited is Belgrade, Serbia. Now the thing is that unlike Sofia, Belgrade is actually a very vibrant city, both during the daytime and in the evening time as well. You've got lots of shops, lots of cafes, lots of bars, which are always full of people. Like other places in the Balkans, there is a really big cafe culture in Belgrade. I do highly recommend that you go to the Belgrade Fortress. It's just a very nice place to have a walk around in the summer. You do get some nice views of the city and the 2 rivers, the River Sava and the River Danube. And also, you certainly want to go to the Eastern Orthodox St. Sava's Church in Belgrade. Not only, again, is it spectacular on the outside, but it's also spectacular on the inside. So you definitely want to go inside. Just like Alexander Nevsky in Sofia, it is free to go inside. And you also certainly want to check out this very nice district called Skadalia. Skadalia is kind of this old town district of Belgrade, which is full of cobbled streets, lovely architecture, lots of cafes, lots of restaurants. It really does remind me so much of being in somewhere like Greece or Turkey, and I do recommend you do eat there. There are some really nice restaurants there, but I do highly recommend that you do make a reservation if you are going to go to one of these restaurants in Skadalia, because I was there on a Wednesday night and most places were absolutely full and would not let me in. Now, Serbian food is absolutely fantastic, at least for meat eaters. You're going to love the meat here. You're going to love eating the cevapi sausages. Just looking at this clip here of my cevapi and my ice cold Serbian lav beer on a hot summer's day does make me very, very hungry. And also the prices in Belgrade are really good as well. Just as a reference point, I did think Belgrade prices were cheaper than prices in Romania and Bulgaria, but probably a little bit more expensive than Albania and probably a little bit more expensive than Bosnia and Herzegovina too. And also Belgrade is known for its really good nightlife as well. To be honest with you, I was a little bit under the weather when I did go to Belgrade, so I didn't really sample any of the bars and pubs, but it did look very, very lively. There honestly isn't much that I can criticise Belgrade with. Honestly, I think it's a really good city and I would happily return. I guess one criticism that I may have is that the public transport system in Belgrade isn't as good as other major European cities. Even Sofia does have a better public transport system, and also Belgrade isn't a very touristy city. So if you are looking for a city full of tourist destinations, then Belgrade really isn't that. But for me, it still is a very good place to come and check out. And also I think it is a good destination for people looking to live and work remotely for a short period of time. So now in second place in my list of Balkan capital cities is Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now the thing with Sarajevo is that Sarajevo is one of the most culturally rich places in all of Europe. The city has an incredible history, an incredible mix of cultures. You've got the Austrian-Hungarian influence, you've got the Ottoman influence, you'll see Roman Catholic churches, you'll see Eastern Orthodox churches, you'll see mosques, you'll see synagogues. And also Sarajevo is the birthplace of the First World War. It's where Franz Ferdinand was killed. And of course in more recent times we've had the Yugoslav wars, we've had the Bosnian genocide. Now as for the genocide in the 90s, there are 3 museums that you definitely want to check out. You do want to check out the Museum of Crimes Against Humanity and Genocide. You also want to visit the War Childhood Museum, and the last one you want to go to is Galleria 11th of July 1995. Now in addition to these 3 museums, you can also go on a Bosnian and Yugoslav wars tour. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to where you can purchase tickets to that tour in the description. And it's a tour that takes you to the War Tunnel Museum, and the tour guide really does bring to life the history and the events in the 1990s. It is a very emotional experience, so I definitely recommend that you do get your tickets to that. But now on a more positive note, you are going to love the food there. You're going to love the cevapi as you get throughout the Balkans, and you're going to also enjoy the baklava, really good baklava in Bosnia. And you definitely want to have a Bosnian coffee with a Turkish delight as well. And you're also going to really enjoy the prices, because the prices of food, drinks, accommodation are really, really good in Sarajevo. It is definitely one of the cheapest places in the Balkan region. And as alluded to earlier, because of the mix of history and the mix of cultures, in some parts of Sarajevo it feels like you're walking in an Austrian town, but in other parts it feels like you're walking in a Turkish town. I guess the only drawback that I can really think of with Sarajevo is that the public transport infrastructure is not fantastic. It's not the best in the world, as I'm sure you can imagine. But to be honest with you, because it is such a walkable city, you don't really need to use public transport to get around the city anyway. And also, I guess if you are a party animal too, do not expect wild, crazy nightlife. There are some good bars, some good pubs, and a nice vibrant atmosphere, but nothing really crazy. And now that finally leads us on to my number 1 favourite capital city in the Balkans. And you would have guessed it by now, because we've now run out of capital cities, and that city is Athens, the capital of Greece. For me, there are not many better travel experiences you can have on planet Earth than going up to the Acropolis, seeing the Parthenon, and seeing the incredible views all across the city of Athens. Athens is a very vibrant city. It's lively, it's full of life. Obviously you've got the ancient ruins everywhere throughout the city, so if you love ancient history, there are really not many better places in the entire planet to go to. For me, the city is full of character. So many restaurants, so many coffee shops. You've got lots of markets, you've got lots of bars, lots of cafes. It's just a really cool city in my opinion. The only real problems I can think about with Athens are the fact that it is very, very touristy. So especially if you go in the summer, it is going to be really crowded. And also I do think the people from Athens aren't too friendly, but that is, to be honest, a bit expected because it is such a touristy city, and normally in very touristy cities people aren't too friendly. But the cuisine, the atmosphere, the vibe, the history just outweighs all of the negatives in my opinion. Athens is one of my favourite cities in Europe. It isn't my all-time favourite city that I've been to, but it is not far away. And speaking of cuisine, you're going to have fantastic food, some of the best food in the world, and maybe the best food in the Balkans. You want to get a gyros, you want to try some kebab, and of course nothing really beats having a Greek salad with a beer in Greece in the sun. And actually thinking about it, I guess another disadvantage with Athens is that it is not the cheapest place. It is not very cheap, but to be honest with you, it is good value for money because Athens is actually cheaper than a lot of major destinations in Western Europe. So even though it may not be the cheapest destination you're going to go to, all things considered, I do think it is worth the money, and I do think you do get value for money coming to Athens. You also do have a fantastic nightlife scene. It's very vibrant at night. Lots of bars, rooftop bars, cocktail bars, clubs as well. Now, just as some concluding remarks, all of these cities are really, really safe cities. You're not going to have any problems unless you go looking for problems. I would just say be a bit more careful in Athens, because Athens is such a touristy city. You do want to take a bit more care. And outside of the historic centre, there are some more run-down areas of Athens too, so just take a little bit more care in Athens. But for me, all of these places are really, really safe places to visit. Now again, do let me know in the comments if you do agree or disagree with my list, and also do give me your list as well, just because it'll be interesting to see if we do have any disagreements. So do drop a comment with your opinions. Now, I do hope that you have found this video very helpful and useful. If you have, do click the like button. It really helps out, so hit the thumbs up, and also do click subscribe as well for more travel content. So thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you in the next video.